Tenant Survival Tips is really about surviving in New York. I mean, we're all New Yorkers, right? And so New Yorkers, to survive, have to learn how to be tough. And so this is a very good example of that. Because my theory about it is like this. Have you ever heard of this metaphor? About the old frog sitting in the pot, and they're turning up the heat, and the frog is just nice and happy in the water of the pot, and he doesn't notice that, oh, those little bubbles are coming up, and he's just simmering, and next thing you know, it's too late, you know? And so I think that when people think about, oh, well, I'm not going to call the landlord about that repair, or that paint job that I need, or that window that sticks, and you're just like that frog sitting in the pot. And when, like, the landlord hires, like, some unlicensed construction firm to, like, demolish the apartment next door until 3 o'clock in the morning, you don't complain. You know, you're like that frog in the pot, you know, and it's just boiling. Next thing you know, you get some lawsuit that doesn't even make any sense. And why were you the target? And you probably know, because you guys are all New Yorkers, right? So you guys know what? Okay, so if you're New Yorkers, think quick. What's that? The club. The club. Right. So instead of that frog in the pot, what I want is for you to remember this, the club. Because why do New Yorkers put a club on their car? You know, you could just, you know, go on the internet and figure out how to break into a car with a club on it, you know, it's whatever. They have it doesn't prevent your car from getting stolen. Everybody knows that, right? A club doesn't prevent your car from getting stolen. Why do you use it? Because the car next to your car does not have a club. Does that make sense? Okay, so the idea is you got to be tough. If you said last week I needed the super to come over to make a repair, if that super hadn't come over, you had to call again and say, hey, I told you last week super is supposed to come. You didn't do it. So then after a couple of calls, it goes like this. You make the call. Next thing happens, a letter. Next thing that happens, an inspection. Next thing that happens, you sue. Next thing that happens, a non-compliance hearing if the landlord doesn't do it right. It's got to go in levels. It's got to go like that. It's got to go on a timetable. And that's whipping it into shape. That's showing the landlord, yeah, I know what my rights are, and I'm going to move on a certain timetable. I don't have to be nasty about it. I'm not trying to pick a fight. I have also clients who like to pick fights with their landlord. I don't agree with that either, right? But it's just, you can be nice, as nice as you want, but you still have to know your rights, okay? Where do these rights come from? Anybody? Okay, well, first of all, the relationship between, think like a lawyer. The relationship between a landlord and a tenant is a what? Contract. It's a legal contract, right? So let's do some work sort of contract-wise, do a little bit of law school. Parties to that contract. Who are the parties to such a contract? You got the tenant. Okay. Got the landlord? Huh? Okay. And you've got the government in a sense, right? And that's what really makes it. Why? Because, you know, the landlord and the tenant, they can agree, but it's also the government that imposes certain terms in the contract too, right? So, and what do I mean by that? Let's talk about terms. Terms of this contract. So, terms of a contract for a lawyer mean this. It means, let me see. I'm just saying, you go to McDonald's, you see on the board that says quarter pounder with cheese, $1.78. What are the terms of the contract? I give you the money, you give me a quarter pounder with cheese, correct? So I agree to do this, you agree to do that, right? So terms of the agreement, I'm going to put a line down like that. I'm going to say, what's the tenant supposed to do? What's the landlord supposed to do, right? And so Tenant is supposed to, let's call it out. Pay the rent. And? Obey the rules. Comply with the rules. Don't be a nuisance. Like, obey the rules also means don't be a nuisance. You know, don't bother the other neighbors and whatever, right? Pay the rent also means pay the rent on time, right? Yeah, you can pay the rent on time. And then, well, access. Sometimes the landlord needs to come in, so access, very important issue. What's the landlord supposed to do? Maintain building. Utilities. Repairs.
Not harass the tenant.
No harassment. Good. No harassment. That's good. And so we got the landlord has to. The building also provide access to the building. He opens the door. You go. You come in. Provide the utilities, repairs. No harassment. Tenant has to pay the rent. Obey the rules. Provide access when necessary. Right. And so those are terms of the agreement. Now we were talking about the government. What are one of the most important things that the government imposes on that relationship? Possibly for New Yorkers.
Rent regulation.
Rent regulation. Yeah, rent regulation. Okay. So